All right. So, welcome. So, today, Christine and Lauren and I are going to be talking about sun transits 38 and 54, and just the conversation we're going to explore around and see what comes up, see what we can learn, and what we can all play with over the next, I guess, two periods of 5.5 days. So, the next 11 days. So, maybe Christine, you could fill us in a little bit on the gates so that we can start the conversation.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Lois. So gate 38 is we call it the fighter in human design, and it does have a real like warrior like energy. Both of these gates, 38 and 54, actually happen to be close to each other, which it doesn't always happen in the mandala. So these gates are one side by side essentially. So gate 38, the fighter, sits right below gate 54. Um, the well, ambition is really what it's called, and they're both in the what we consider the root energy of our design, and so they are both fuel gates, right? And so this kind of pressurized, adrenalized energy to 438 to fight for what matters. This is really important. So, this energy that will be in for these 5.5 days has a lot to do with purpose and feeling purposeful. And then 54 is also about, like I said, about ambition, but it's about doing things that are in the material plane that have a lot of value, like creating value for your tribe. It's a very tribal gate. And so I just think it's interesting that these live right here by each other with this really fueling energy at the end of what we consider our calendar year. So I think that that is kind of an interesting, like, what's that all about? Is it the energy to like review our year and make sure that we're on purpose, which I kind of feel like it might be, and then to ambition to step into the next, what we consider the Gregorian calendar next year with actual ambition to do things, to change things up, to make things better for yourself and others. So I just think it's a kind of an interesting, energy to contemplate for this particular time of year, which is such a big time of year for most cultures on the planet now, this changing of one year to the next.
It's interesting that these gates that provide fuel come at a time where we're drawn inward. And so for me, as I'm listening to you, I was thinking this fuel can also like burn up what we don't need to carry into that new year, at the same time fueling what could be brought forward.
Yeah. Yeah, I think about a lot of artists this time of year. Like they've been so busy, right? Doing whatever it is they're doing, usually for the holidays. It's often, especially if you're making a living as an artist. And then this time right now is very often a place where people are like, they get all fired up to do what's next, right? And so it is interesting, even though it's supposedly like you're supposed to be spending time with family and relaxing and all of that. There's this energy to like, no, I want to get on to what's next. So I relate to that, but um, yeah,
It's interesting too that this like the New Year's resolution. It's a time that something's going to change, and for some reason, that this beginning of this year, there's going to be this energy and this motivation to make something different,
yeah,
and that's sort of a long-standing tradition in our
yeah,
culture.
yeah.
Christine, I'd like to hear a little bit more about the difference between 38 and 54 because I look towards to the I Ching for my understanding of these. And I can see how they taking what we gain from gate 38 will support what we achieve in 54. But looking more closely at gate 38, there's an inner struggle, right? That
Oh
goes
yeah.
on, an inner and outer struggle. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. There is a lot of struggle. The channel is 2838, which is the channel of struggle. And it really is about like knowing what's worth fighting for, right? So you can get caught in just this fighting energy, just fighting to fight, right?
Mm.
Which a lot, that's the kind of the shadowy side of this either gene key or human design gate. And we see a lot of that, right? We see a lot of that on the planet, just fighting to fight. We don't even know why we're in doing it. We're just right? We're just struggling all the time. And so, yeah, being disconnected from that purpose, from that why of the fight can be really um problematic. And it's an individual energy in human design, right? It's really about our own process and our own knowing, like learning how to be in touch with our own inner knowing. And if we're not, then again, we could just cycle endlessly fighting against whatever shows up. And then 54 is really about ambition. Like it really is about making stuff happen on the material plane and transform. Its channel is called the channel of transformation, right? And so it is connected to this idea of like making stuff different. And again, it does show up right at that New Year's resolution time, but it doesn't necessarily carry forward with fuel to make it happen. Right. And so I think that's what you're talking about, Lois. Like we all have these ideas about like, oh, we're going to make this thing happen. We're ambitious to do different things. But then that energy just goes away. And then you're like, yeah, I don't really want to do that. That seems like work. Right.
Well, there's something about 54 though, that ambition and wanting to achieve something. In the I Ching, the understanding I got was that is in community too. It's not just about like if we looked at the gene keys, it's the progression from feeling like we need to achieve it ourselves
Mhm.
to how do I become part of the bigger picture, the bigger whole.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a tribal channel in human design. It is about yourself and it's about supporting the close in people in your life, right? Like there's collective channels that are about supporting all of humanity, but tribal is very much about who are my people and how do I support them. And so, yeah, Gate 54 carries that energy to do that. It's also in the I Ching, it's called the marrying maiden, which is a really, I mean, it's just a long ago term. We don't use the idea anymore, but apparently the marrying maiden was usually the sister that came along with the woman that was to be married, and she came along as a second wife, essentially. Like this was the tradition in China in the deep past. And so this idea of like, which I think is interesting because it's the opposite of ambition, because this is all about change you didn't ask for or you can't control, right? And so there's also this kind of energy in there, like like things are changing, I'm ambitious for things to change, but then I don't actually have, and this is true of us, right? We don't actually have much control in our life, right? We don't like to think about it like that, but it's actually true. And it gets back to this idea of resolutions, right? Like we all have these ideas about what we want to do, but so life comes in, it affects us, right? We can't control everything. And so we think, oh, we're going to do all these amazing new things, we're going to behave in different ways, and then life happens, right? So um
But
and
without,
I was just going to say, underlying all of that is this idea of joyousness, right? Like it lives in this hexagram. And so there is this piece in this energy that wants for us to find the things that are joyful and vital and give us life, right? So that also is true.
I was just thinking as you were sharing about like how important this has been, like we wouldn't be here if there wasn't this energy. Like all of our predecessors struggling and accumulating and making things happen. And yet in this, we're also looking at there's sort of different levels of consciousness or health in this. And I think it's like when we get trapped in that very basic, almost like when we were looking at Maslow's hierarchy down in the survival aspect of it, we're really trapped in a place where we're spinning, trying and fighting just to stay alive.
Yeah.
And we're in the world now, we're in a place where there's room for so much more. So we can take that energy and use it in a different way.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like the way you brought in that the lower vibration is there, right? And we could stay there. That's the beauty of this. We have that free will, but with each of these transitions in the gates, we have the opportunity to grow into the higher vibration of that energy. There's something I see really interesting about the two, 54 following 38, that we have to go through this like inner conflict and um, that prepares us to be able to go into that. Okay, this isn't about me, it's about how do I support the whole. And when I think too, astrologically, as Pluto's in Aquarius and we're moving more into that, what's good for the community, not what's good for me, how do I achieve success, but how does my family, how does our community, how does this group I'm a part of achieve success? But we have to join up our inner conflict before we can do that.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and these are both Capricorn energies, right? So the human design gates live within the traditional zodiac. And so this is a more narrowing energy of Capricorn energy, right? And it is like Capricorn thrives on rules and wants to know how to make things work, and they're high achievers, right? All of those things that we hear in ambition and struggle. Um, but we have to recognize, again, this is what's helpful, I think, about this time, like this thing that we're exploring. It's like, oh, this Capricorn energy is here right now in the ether, all right, because we're in it. It's this Capricorn season. And so, yes, this idea of wanting to struggle for more, wanting to know what the rules are, wanting to know how things work, right? Like it's around all of us, right? And so tapping into that, I think, can be really interesting.
Yeah. When I think from my lens of using GMO extracts for the nervous system, and I was kind of thinking what would help that inner opposition. What came to mind for me is the use of silver lime, and silver lime is a extract that's known for reconnecting the disparate parts of ourselves, right? And that's what's really happening when we're opposing. We're not seeing the beauty and the difference, right? We're like, it's different, it can't be part of me. And so I think silver lime would be really useful to that. And then it's interesting, I was thinking about this marrying maiden. I actually love the story that goes with that, with the I Ching of coming in to support something bigger than yourself, right? It's not about you shining, but you're supporting something bigger. And I really got to thinking about the plants and which plant out there in the Jimma world is really a support plant. Like what is, and I work with plants that work together in a kind of permaculture view. And so gray alder comes up, and gray alder is a nitrogen fixing plant. Anything that grows by it grows better, right? And so that is the marrying maiden of the plant world. I think I think there are probably many more out there, but it was a lovely way to kind of see that. I'll probably never look at a gray alder tree the same way.
So funny. I love that. Would Comfrey, if we did Comfrey, would Comfrey be a marrying maiden?
Of course, comfrey would be very main, but comfrey takes up a lot of space. So I think there's some other qualities there that
I
might.
gotcha. Yeah, that's good. That's good. I love that. I love that distinction.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Lois, is there anything that comes up for you in this, like that would help people ease through these gates?
I go back and was, Christine, you mentioned meaning, like meaning and purpose. And I was thinking about when we're really in this struggling or uh, wanting things, needing to fill ourselves up, is we're highly in an ego place, right? There's usually a big contraction around, I need to make something right, or I need to get something. And so looking at when that happens to us is like, if I'm fighting for something, what am I fighting for?
Mhm.
It's just to step back. And it's like, is it because I need to be right? Is it because I need to win, or is it actually going to make something better?
Yeah.
And so there's just that taking the pause and asking, what am I fighting for
I
here?
love that.
Yeah. Oh, I love that too. And I love that. So gate 38 for us this year is between December 30th and January 4th. And so that is the time that people, when they're making resolutions, right? And it is an individual energy. So it is here to help you be self-empowered, to help you be empowered. So as people are making their resolutions, if they're doing that, I like to call them intentions. I don't really resolve to do anything. I just intend to do it. But as you're setting those, recognizing that you are in an energy that's giving you extra power individually, right? It's wanting you to be empowered. And something we teach in human design is that our self-empowerment is how we empower others, right? And so when we're setting these goals and ideas and intentions, doing what again is most worthwhile to us regardless of anybody else's thoughts is actually what's right and is actually what will empower others. And so just keeping that thought in mind as you're in this gate 38 energy, like, oh, this is about me and what I need to do for myself, and that's how I serve. And then after you have this ambition, you have this actual energy to do this thing collectively, right? You do then step into this space where it's like, oh, everybody's trying to work together to make something happen, right? But you have to empower yourself first.
It feels like we've come full circle on this conversation.
I'm
Yes,
looking forward for this time.
it's like coming around from looking at this individual aspect of ourselves and how it can be so powerful in us. And it can also be a huge trap for us. And being able to pay attention to that, the energy that it's in us and it's outside of us at the same time right now. And being able to look at ourselves and the people that we're interacting with to know, like, when we come into these places of struggle or conflict or fighting, is what's the real purpose here? What's
Yeah.
this really all about? And then having that inform and really empower each of us.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I'm recognizing as you say that, I'm like, oh yeah, as I'm trying to be self-empowered, so is everybody in my family. Right? And just like, oh, I need to make space for that too.
Very good point. Thank you, ladies.
Thanks, Elvis.
Yeah, thank you.